Welcome to Season 4 of the Lead with Coffee podcast, where we continue the journey into how you can change the culture in your business and your home through simple leadership practices. Grab a cup of coffee and get ready to join into today's conversation. Welcome back to Lead with Coffee. We found a fun TED Talk and article that we want to break down today, and it is with Adam Grant. And he talks about, have you found yourself staying up late, joylessly binging TV, and doom scrolling? Our new favorite word that we shared with our team. Through the news or simply navigating your day, uninspired and aimless. Any of you?
No, doom scrolling, never. Never happens.
The last 2 years of our lives. So chances are you are languishing. And if you haven't heard the word languishing, we'll break it down today. But Adam Grant talks about it as a practice that's become all too common after many months in the pandemic. And he talks about the indicators of languishing and talks about that kind of like blah feeling. And when we brought this to our team, it was really interesting. We talked about it on a previous podcast, but it was really interesting because we were noticing that our team didn't have any energy. They didn't have any flow. They were kind of showing up, checking the box, and we were like, where'd they go? Like the team that was here 2 years ago is not the team we see today. And we aren't the leaders that we were 2 years ago with like motivation and inspiration, and we couldn't wait to step into every challenge. And now every challenge feels so overwhelming, and showing up just feels hard, right?
Yeah, no question about it. I actually was listening to Craig Rochelle this morning too, and he's talking a little bit about the same thing. And, you know, if you expect for things to go back how they were 2 years ago, it's not going to happen.
No.
Everything's different, and the energy's different. And if you expect to do the things the way you did them back then, there's a very good chance that your business is not going to grow. Your business is not going to move forward because everyone is in a different state. Mm-hmm. And this languishing is so true. I mean, I'm not staying up late at night, but I'm getting up way too early and get stuck in that doom scrolling because it's just kind of a, I don't know.
It's a pattern now.
It's a pattern now.
Yeah. It's a habit.
Mm-hmm.
Because we couldn't do anything but just scroll and wonder what was going to happen in the world. And so I think that changed. But now we need to rethink the way we work, and the pandemic has made it strikingly clear that working longer hours does not lead to greater impact, which is why we're doing things like the shorter workday, flexible office to home, all these different things to try to get our employees out of languishing into flourishing. And that's what we want to talk about today. And according to Anatomy of Work Index, which I don't know anyone that actually knows what that is, but it's a great fact, 76% of workers are struggling to disconnect from work. And in the last year, 7 in 10 workers experienced burnout. And we know that our team, every time we bring up the word burnout, anytime we send an article on burnout, they're like, top 10 facts that you're burnt out. Our team is like, I have 9 out of the 10.
Right.
And we do too. You know, I think that everyone is burnt out. So how do we get out of it? And so a little backstory on Adam Grant, if you don't know who he is. He's an organizational psychologist, best-selling author, and a professor at Wharton, focusing on how we can find motivation and meaning and live more generous and creative lives. And when he's talking about that blah feeling, which I think we all have, and you know, we're recording this on a Friday, and it's like the last thing we want to do. But you know, this is part of work and business. You know, we think about that blah feeling we experienced during the pandemic and how we shift into a state of flourishing. You know, we have to understand what languishing is, and really and give it a name. I think once we gave it a name, our team was really kind of having their aha moments of, okay, now I know I'm in it. How do I get out of it? So.
And I think the funny thing is, I mean, I don't know that I've ever heard that word before. And if I had, it was, you know, just I didn't pay any attention to it. But now that you know that word, you're hearing other people saying it.
All the time.
All the time now.
All
it's
the
like
time.
It's like, you know, you don't think about a red Ferrari. And all of a sudden you see 10 red Ferraris on the road. It's just,
Yeah.
you're noticing it now.
Or when we created the stoplight effect, then all of a sudden everybody had a stoplight, something to do with a stoplight in their business, right?
Yeah.
So languishing, according to Adam Grant, is the neglected middle child of mental health. You're not depressed, but you still have hope. You're not burned out. Maybe some of us are, but you still have energy. You feel a little bit more aimless and a little bit joyless, and it's that sense of emptiness and stagnation. Like you're in a void and you're looking at the world through a foggy windshield, and it's a real thing. And I think once we, it's a 10-minute TED Talk. We'll put a link to it at the bottom of the podcast for you to watch it. It is so much of what we are all living and how we are all feeling, because it's like, no, I have energy to do the podcast, but like jumping into it feels hard. Once you're in it, you're good, but like committing, I don't know if that's what it is for me, and everyone's got a different way of the languishing, but there are things you can do, and it really is about, if you want to flourish, you have to focus on a sense of mastery, meaning and understanding that you matter in the world. And so we'll kind of break those things out. But when you hear that, David, kind of like looking through the world through a foggy windshield, does it resonate?
Yeah, it totally does. And I would say a good example is for the last 2 years, and thank God things are getting better and mask, mandates are going away. Oh. But over this last couple of years, it's just like always bad news.
Right.
And another
doomsday.
Doomsday. And another thing to hold us back from being able to go out and be free and do the things we enjoy and not have a second thought about it like it was pre-pandemic. If you wanted to go to the beach or go to the movies or go to a restaurant, you just go. You make a reservation and go. And now it's like, what's the mask mandate, and can I get in there? Are they only 25% capacity? And all these things, they're like, it's just another thing to have to worry about. And again, there's so much there's so much bad news, but the bad news is what gets people's attention. So the lame media puts it out there because that's what grabs people's attention. But over this last couple of years, it's just so much of that everyone's just like, blah, another day of bad news, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and rule. Mm-hmm. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think part of breaking out of languishing is realizing that we have to stop living in someone else's reality on Netflix and YouTube and Instagram, and start to live in our own again.
Sure.
Right? We're not locked in our houses. We are starting to work back in our offices and go outside and do everything like we're supposed to and be mask free. So how do you get out of it? So part of it is mastery, which is a sense of progress. And I think a lot of us felt like that was hard over the last 2 years. You'd make progress on something and then everything would shut down again. And then you'd make progress on something and everything would shut down again. So now focus on making little progressive steps every day. I think that's what Adam talks about most, is that psychologists are finding that over and over, it doesn't take a big triumphant or major accomplishment to transcend languishing. All it takes are small wins and little moments of progress. And we know that. Like, there's this victory when you have a successful project or a successful completion. Those are big moments, right? But like this little victory of like, man, like that issue I was having with that contract or that financial thing or with that client is resolved. And like, I can go home today and go like, finally, like I feel like I made progress. And that gives you energy for the next day.
Well, and I would say what has worked for me is, I'm following Michael Hyatt a lot, and I've started using his full focus planner, which really helps you focus on the important things for not only the day, but the week, the quarter, and the year. And having your daily big three, like the big three things you have to get done in the day, it is so gratifying and such a win to be able to check those off. Now, does that happen every day? Certainly not, but it happens more times than not. And setting yourself up on, maybe it's not that, but something similar that you can accomplish and check that box. And again, I don't want to make everything a to-do list, but when it comes to projects and things you need to get done, if you put them down on paper and you go in the day knowing that those are the biggest focus things you have to work on and be able to complete those, it's a good feeling. And it gets you out of that kind of blah state where I'm not accomplishing anything, nothing's new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and progress is different for all of us, right? Like you might need to have a list and your big 3, and I might just need to like finally tackle something that I've been avoiding because I don't find joy in it, but I know I have to get it off my plate and I've been delaying it. And once I finally just say like, I'm going to finish this today, it's so freeing.
Yep.
Or, those little, even like your house, like just step back into your environment when you get home. If you come home and your house is just a disaster and laundry's everywhere, dishes everywhere, that is frustrating, and that can get you back into, I'm just going to plop on the couch because I don't have the energy to like keep my house in a state that I'm proud of. And that little progress of like, I'm going to put the laundry in before I go to bed. I'm going to turn the dishwasher on before I go to bed. And then you wake up and it's like, oh, that's done. That's just nice. It's like, how are you changing your routines? And the interesting thing about progress is it turns out to be the single strongest predictor of joy and energy at work, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Just feeling like you moved forward on something you were trying to pursue. And it's so important. If languishing is stagnation, then progress is the I can't say that word. You say it.
Well, I don't know what word you're going to say.
Antithesis.
We're
gonna get it today. More coffee. It's the opposite of stagnation, right? And so I think that is how we start to break this cycle and get into flourishing versus languishing. And the other one that we talked a lot with our team and what Adam talks about on the TED Talk is flow. How do you get back into a rhythm of flow?
Yes.
And flow is so necessary, yet so hard to achieve in today's environment.
Right.
Because there's so many distractions. There's everything going on in the world. Fires happening in your office. You're always navigating everybody else's problems. But when you set time aside for uninterrupted work, that's how you can find flow. And you'll get absorbed in what you're doing that you lose track of time, place, and even of yourself. And that's where you start to make progress again. And so we talked to our team about what are your peak times when you have flow? And are you most effective from 9 to 11, or are you a late creative and you like to work from 9 at night to 11 at night when everyone's asleep and you finally can have quiet, and that's when you're in your flow? We're all very different. David's flow can start at 4 a.m., right? And so, but are you scheduling time to fully focus on something and turning everything else off that's a distraction so you can focus on what you need to?
And again, I'll go to part of what I've discovered with the Michael Hyatt Full Focus program is creating the ideal week, and actually taking a calendar and writing down, if I had my way every week, these are the things that I would do, and actually putting blocks of time for us would be strategic planning, for podcasting, for just being able to focus on a specific task. Because now that I've done that and I see, and not every day I'm going to be able to follow that, but I know on the back of my mind, it's like, oh, I created the ideal week of how I want this to go. I'm not just going to schedule back-to-back meetings every day, all day. I'm going to set aside blocks of time to be able to do the things that are most important. And it could be most important to either your mental state, or it could be most important that this is the time I need to strategically plan for our business to move forward. And I forget what her name was, but there was that whole book on white space, kind of the same thing. Where
we saw her as a speaker.
We did. We saw her at a servant leadership conference a few years ago. But they're all saying the same thing. Everyone's got a little bit different story. Kerry Newhoff talks about it in his new book. I can't remember the name of the book, but The Green Zone.
I can't remember anything
today. I know. It is what it is. But using that green zone when you have the most energy to do the most productive work. And so to sit on a meeting that maybe you're not even leading, you're just a participant in during your green zone is like the worst thing you can do when you could be spending that time being strategic. So all these things, recognizing when you have your most and least amount of energy, is going to help you create that flow that we're talking about. Feel like you accomplish something. You're not always rushed. You have a sense of And honestly, it's going to be a sense of calmness, because if you set that time aside and you feel like you've accomplished some things, you're going to feel more calm instead of rush. And if you're chasing email all day, then you're dealing with someone else's problems and you're not really addressing what you really need to be the best you.
Yeah. Lots to unpack there. I like that you brought back up Carrie Newhoff. There's a whole podcast on your green zone, and everyone's green zones are different. That's kind of like what we were talking about with your flow. Your green zone is your most productive period of your day. You move into your yellow and your red, hence the stoplight again.
Yeah, hey.
Everyone has a stoplight. But it ties into the mindfulness also, right? That you have to give full attention to a single task. And when is the most productive time for you to put attention to that? Is it 4 o'clock in the afternoon when you're running out the door at 4:30 that your most critical task of the day is happening? That's not going to be effective. That's not flow. That's going to put you back into languishing, because you're going to go home and just be like, I didn't get anything done today, because you waited to the end of your day to try to get something critical done that would have given you progress, but you ran out of time, right?
And it might even be the setting that you're in. It might be that you can't reach flow or your green zone or any of those things sitting at your desk in your office.
Yeah.
And maybe you need to go sit in a park. Maybe you need to work from home that day or at a Starbucks or something where you're outside of your element. Because I know when I'm in front of my computer, there's a lot of distracting things. But if I could sit at a table away from all the electronics and be able to focus on something, and maybe I do have to work on a computer, but I don't have all the rest of the screens going, much more focused, much more able to handle a single task without all the squirrels running by, all the distractions that come in. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a study that says that people check emails approximately 74 times a day and interrupt themselves at least once every 10 minutes.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 10 seconds.
It feels like closer to 10 seconds. Yeah, I think 10 minutes is generous.
Right.
If you have staff, every minute.
Yeah.
So no wonder we can't find flow. And I think that's a good point. I think what I have realized over the last few months, coming back from the holidays and just navigating where we are in our business and starting another business at the same time and just dealing with life, is I have to create margin in my life to pause, be out in nature, breathe, to have creativity.
Yeah.
If in my role, if I need to come in and have flow, I can't come in exhausted. I can't come in and say my peak time is 9 to 11, but I'm exhausted because I have been chasing the week and chasing the month or the year. And you just feel like, with life and kids' schedules and sports and everything we're dealing with, I'm tired and it's hard to find flow, because maybe I am still in languishing. I am still in this, like, I have energy, but I just can't get traction. And I think that is because I'm not able to get progress. I'm not able to get grounding. I'm not able to make forward momentum on these big creative projects like digital courses that are on my plate, because mentally I don't have it in me.
Absolutely.
And part of that, getting out of languishing to flourishing, is creating that margin to do something you love for a little bit so you can get back into the work.
Right.
We paused, we went on vacation, and that's great, but it was still work. Work was still always on our brains, right? And so part of realizing, to get to flourishing, you have to realize what matters to you, and that what you do also matters to others, that you make an impact. Because we can start to feel like the work that we do, it doesn't really matter if I show up, right? The business will still go on. Or it doesn't really matter if I get this done today, because whatever, I'll send them an email and we'll get it done tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
But it matters. And when you start to put that mattering in the forefront, the more clear you are that your individual work contributes to a greater purpose beyond yourself, the easier it is to experience that sense of meaning and motivation that helps you move out of languishing and flourishing. And we brought that to our team about a month ago, and just kind of reminded them that the work that we do can feel daunting or, like we're not making traction. But we're putting furniture in a football stadium that's brand new, that's going to long outlive all of us and impact a community far beyond the chair or the upholstery that we're in a battle with right now. Once it's in, it's like these are major impactful things.
Yeah.
Or we're changing a park setting and spending 2 years redesigning and rebuilding to make a more beautiful experience for everyone that steps foot into that beautiful environment. Are the days hard? Yeah. But the longevity of what we're producing is impacting the lives of others. And when you step back and realize what your work is doing, you have a different meaning to show up.
Yeah, I agree. And, the fact that we've built buildings at community colleges that thousands and thousands of students have been through and received an education because we were part of that. You have to remember those things.
Right.
It's not just another project. You're not just checking a box and moving on. That's why we love the work that we do for some of the clients that we're working on, because they are spaces that change people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your typical TI in a corporate setting, maybe not as impactful, but when you're building community colleges and when you're building football stadiums and things that will be part of the community for decades to come, it's pretty cool. I do want to step back on one of the other things you said, talking about we went on vacation, but we were still thinking about work. Mm-hmm. And one of the misconceptions that we all have, or most of us have, I would say, is that I can't wait for the vacation because we feel that the vacation is going to be the thing that recharges us. Mm-hmm. And it's never the case.
No.
You have great experiences on vacation, but you can come back just as exhausted. Mm-hmm. And really the point of life and the goal we're trying to achieve is we want to love what we're doing so much that we don't have to escape from it. Mm-hmm. You can enjoy the vacations, and you want to enjoy the vacations and have those memories with your spouse or your family, but they should not be just an escape from your reality. Because if that is the case, then you need to work on changing your reality. And if you're not happy and you don't have the passion for what you're working on, then those are the other talks you have to have. And maybe you're creating your own languishing because you won't face that you hate what you're doing.
Right.
And it's time
you need to stop something that
right.
you're doing.
Yeah,
right?
You need to stop something and put the focus on a passion that you have. Or maybe you can start the passion and still have to be involved with what you don't love as much as you build that up.
Yeah.
But the whole mindset is growth and change and not being stagnant and doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. I think just going back to the definition of languishing, you're not depressed, you have hope. You're not burned out, you still have energy. You feel a little bit aimless and a little bit joyless, and it's kind of that stagnation. So to get out of those things, you need to channel the hope, channel the energy, do something that brings you joy, and think about what can you master, those little bits of progress every day, what has meaning to you, and be a little more mindful about your time. And that will help you start to move from languishing to flourishing.
We appreciate that you decided to hang out and spend some time with us discussing life and leadership. It would mean the world to us if you would share this episode on social media to increase our online presence. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a minute to rate it and review it wherever you listen. Mahalo!